So you joined the Marine Corps in September 1968, kind of on the spur of the moment. But I mean, clearly by September 68, you knew that there was a big war going on in Vietnam.
Oh, sure, sure. We had friends, you know, that already went and got hit in Tet. He went a friend of ours that I grew up with, he went over in like right after Christmas and he wasn't there a couple weeks and he got hit and he was home again. I said, I thought you were going to Vietnam. And he said, yeah, I did. I got hit. He wasn't there a couple weeks.
Wow.
And we set up a scholarship by class, the senior class, for a kid that he graduated a couple of years ahead of us. He was killed in Vietnam, Michael Smith, and our class set up a scholarship. So we did that too, but we knew about it for sure.
So when you and your friend went to the Marine Corps recruiter in September 1968, not even really thinking about joining the Marines, but then by the time the day's over, you've signed up. I mean, was Vietnam part of that at all, or was it, well, we don't have anything else to do, let's just do this, or
Well, you know, the guy said, the recruiter actually became a friend of mine, and he told us, he said, you join for 2 years, 1 year is going to be in Vietnam. This was in July, actually. It wasn't September. We went in September, but we signed up and had to get our physicals and stuff like that. So he said, 1 year you'll be in Vietnam for sure. And I said, oh, we didn't really think about it. Then we just did it, him and I. And he was, I was 18, he was 17. So he had to get his parents to sign.
did you fly in?
Yes, sir. Yep. Landed in Da Nang. They shipped us to like the transit center, they called it. And I actually had orders to go to the 3rd Marine Division. And then when I got to the transit center, they told me I was going to this 1st Marine Division because the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines was just in a serious battle and lost a lot of people. So they had to fill up their slots.
Wow.
So they sent a whole bunch of us to the 7th Marines.
And so
Yep,
then you were south of Da Nang
correct.
for that time. What was your first impression of Vietnam when you stepped out of the plane for the first time?
It was pretty warm, pretty hot, muggy. The smells, yeah, it was unique. I was from Connecticut. I grew up in the projects, and it was a lot different. That's for
Really?
sure.
Yeah, different from Connecticut.
Yeah.
Um, and what was the first thing you heard, saw, experienced that drove home to you that you had arrived in a war zone?
Well, then we went. They sent us to 11th Motors. You get on a convoy and go out to. We went out to LZ Baldy, which was regimental headquarters, and for the 7th Marines, and then they sent us to the 2nd Battalion, which was at LZ Ross. And along the roads, there were dead bodies, and they just left them out there with they paste maybe a piece of paper on their shirt so that the locals could see them, I guess. But that was it. And then we got there. They sent us out to LZ Ross from the LZ Baldy regimental headquarters. And as we're pulling into the gate, the battalion is having a memorial service for the guys that were killed 4 or 5 days earlier. The
Wow.
rifles stuck in the dirt with the helmets on and the medic bags and, taps. And they read the names. And I go, after being in the Marine Corps a year on that cruise, I listened to these guys that were in the Tet Offensive. They were at Way City. They were at Quezon. They were up and for 4 months I listened to these guys tell stories, and I said, oh, no, I'm going there now. And this is the first thing I saw
Wow.
was that memorial service in LZ Ross. I said, oh, this ain't good.
How old were you?
Was 19,
Wow.
19 and a half.
And the
Yeah.
bodies that you saw along the side of the road, I'm assuming those were Viet Cong
Yeah. Yeah.
with
Yeah.
notes on them to tell the locals this is what happens to the Viet Cong.
Yeah. This
Wow.
is how we're going to end up, I guess.
You show up when this memorial is taking place on LZ Ross. Um, what was your reception like? Um, I often hear vets say when they were new, well, sometimes I hear veterans say, combat vets say after they experienced combat a few times, they wouldn't really make any attempt to reach out to the new guys. They kind of kept their distance. What was your reception like?
It was similar, but they really they really got the shit kicked out of it. They lost a lot of people, and not just killed in action, but medevaced. When I got to my platoon, the five new guys of us that got there, they put us into the third platoon. It made like a large squad, maybe 18 guys with five new guys. That the platoon should be 30, 40 people. But I knew, I said, well, this ain't good. The
Right.
platoon, we were short. So they had a talk with us, and we didn't go right in the bush. After this ceremony, they sent the company on a 3-day in-country R&R to China Beach, and we just got drunk for 3 days, and we didn't even do anything. And
Oh,
and we were with these guys, so we got to know them.
what was your job?
My job with Echo Company was I was a machine gunner, and you start out as an assistant gunner, a gunner, and carry ammo and extra barrels and asbestos gloves so you could change the barrels. And you know you didn't start out carrying the gun. You just had to be there with the bag of the barrel, extra barrel, the extra ammo. And
I'm assuming that means then that you're going out on patrols.
oh yeah, no, we got back from that R&R, and then we wound up going out with the company, and was right not far from LZ Ross. Like, they had like Charlie Ridge and Border Valley and stuff. But, you know, they were still really tense because of the battle happened at the end of October. I mean, end of August, like the 27 or 8. So it was all pretty recent. And they were probably, patching up and licking their wounds too. So, it was a crazy place. I mean, even if I saw a dinosaur, I wouldn't have been surprised. I mean, it,
Wow.
it was just so prehistoric. The whole place was crazy.
How long was it before you experienced your first firefight?
Yeah, probably not too long. It was probably a couple weeks, not even a couple weeks. Because say like the first week was a wash, then we went out, got hooked up with the company, what was left, and we went back into this place that they called Death Valley. Hep Duck was where they had the big battle. So we went out there and we're looking. That's all we did was patrol and look. And we had a couple of Kit Carson scouts with us. They were like, I guess, former VC or North Vietnamese that got caught, and they come to work with us, I guess.
Right.
And they would question the villagers. Usually the men, you didn't come across, young men. It would be boys and old men. And, if there was any men that were fighting age, they were suspects, I guess. So they would chat with them, and this place was still hot. And then we got sniped at, and They didn't have any laws, the portable disposable rocket launchers. So we were carrying, which I was surprised, the old 3.5 rocket launchers, two-piece tubes, and we got sniped at. So we cranked that up, and they loaded up and shot around out there just where we received the fire from. But they would just snipe at us and take off unless they were ready for us, I guess.
The Kit Carsons, did you feel like you could trust them?
I didn't really know, it's still new at it, and I was just in country, like I said, 2, 3 weeks tops. So it, I try to listen to what the other guys that were there for a while, and I didn't hear anything negative. And they dragged these guys out. I mean, they looked like they were going to chop his hand off while they're questioning him. And the guy starts sweating. Next thing you know, he's talking. So they know how to get answers out of him one way or another. I don't know if they ever paid off.
So these are the Kit Carsons find some guy suspect he's Viet Cong and
Yeah,
start interrogating him.
they placed his hand on the ground and started chopping like they're getting closer to his fingers. You don't tell us. It was serious. I go, no, geez, I'm not gonna mess with these guys.
Wow.
But yeah, no. And then you go out in the bush and stay for like a week or so. And machine gun team, there were two teams in a platoon. So you either went on a day patrol or a night action patrol ambush.
Apart from the NVA and the Viet Cong, what other enemies, I'll put it that way, were there out in the bush? So, I'm thinking, for example, of fire ants. I'm thinking of leeches.
Yeah,
So what other challenges were there out there in the field?
the leeches were bad. The mosquitoes were, I remember, big. They saw they were they were a pain. They were loud, and the night and the weather. The weather after in October on, I never seen so much rain. It was horrible. I
Hmm.
mean, it would rain so much we wouldn't get supplied. You usually got supplies for 3 days at a time and mail, but the choppers couldn't fly over the mountains or the hills. The weather, it was everything. The Marine Corps was against, if you felt like it. The Marine Corps, they send you out and holy cow. After the first month, we went on it's supposed to be a 30-day operation into Antenna Valley. And we didn't come out of the bush until like the middle of January. We just stayed moving around. It
Wow.
was cool. Yeah,
Wow.
supplied by helicopters and
Hmm. Um, Vietnam vets have told me that you're always wet. Either you're getting rained on or you're sweating.
yeah, no, it was bad.
Yeah.
And what I didn't mind about the rain and the bad rain, when it was really bad, was knowing I think it helped keep a lot of action down for them too, because like the North Vietnamese, I it had to be miserable for them too. I mean, really.
How did the first significant firefight you were in, how did that start?
It was triggered off by an ambush outside the company. Used to set up ambushes supposedly to protect the avenues of approach to our perimeter. And I don't know. I was asleep in a tent. I didn't have hole watch yet, and I heard the firefight woke me up. And then I turned to the other new guy, and I said, something brilliant like, "Is that rifle fire I hear?" I said, "What else could it be?" And my legs were shaking like rubber bands. They're going. We knew it. We could look out. We could see the freaking tracers going back and forth. And the ambush that was there, they caught some guys trying to come up on our position, triggered them off. So it worked. you
Wow.
know, it was good. But that was my really first major firefight.
How long do you think it went on?
I think a half hour tops, you know. You couldn't really see anything except for the tracers going back and forth, and then everybody's on a all up and alert and popping off shots at anything they hear and stuff like that. So, but we went out the next day and we found, I think, a couple bodies. It was crazy, but that was really the first one.
Were any of the Marines hit in that first firefight?
I don't think they were. We got the drop on them pretty good. So,
As a machine gunner or assistant machine gunner, what's your role when a firefight breaks out? Do you wait until the officer tells you where to go, or do you have freedom to kind of decide where you're going to go?
you're pretty much, they call you right off the bat. It used to be guns up. And you knew that. You start running towards where the fight was. They want to get firefight, or first you hear guns up, then you knew, and you start going towards the sound of that voice. But that was it. You had to get firepower right away. So
Wow.
we'd go running up there, two of us, sometimes three.
Now, as an assistant gunner, then you're not firing back, right? You're feeding the bullets into the machine gun just to.
Yeah, pretty much. You have your rifle, but you got to connect the belts. The ammo belts are 100 rounds. So you got each box is 100 rounds. You got to put them connected. We tried to have like 200, a 50 round belt on the gun ready to go. So then when you start get lay down and you want to put some fire out, you already got hooked up another couple of, you hook up a 100 round belt and you're hooking up another 100 round belt. Because you could go, it fired 550, 650 rounds a minute. So
Wow.
you can go through that pretty fast. But you have to have a little fire discipline too, because you don't want to run out of bullets. So that was important too.
Right. And my understanding is if you just have the trigger going and the bullets are going, 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 I mean, the barrel can get so hot you'll melt the thing.
Oh yeah, that's why he had asbestos gloves. But you're really only supposed to fire like 5, 6 rounds at a time.
Yeah.
For you try.
Yeah.
If you got it, if you got it, you got it. But no, no, yeah, you don't. You can go through a lot of ammo, so you got to be careful. Everybody should be careful about it anyway.
What do you remember
Sure.
about the Navy corpsman?
The Navy corpsman. I remember the first one that we were with. We all got to be. It was, maybe we went into Antenna Valley and we went up a night, a whole platoon size patrol, and they dropped us off for an ambush. We were in these triple canopy jungles, and I don't know, but they left us to set up an ambush. And well, we were set up an L-shaped ambush on this trail, and we're setting up watches. I was with the gun team, so we're with the corpsman, the squad leader, the radio man, two of us on the gun, and maybe another. Yeah, I think there was another guy, a rifleman or two, and then the other squad fire team was set up like in an L shape on this trail. So we're on the ambush. I had watch, and this guy, the radio, I think it was a radio man or just a ground, but he starts snoring. You're not supposed to make any noise. I mean, it's dark. We don't know. You can't see anything. And this kid starts snoring like a grizzly bear. So I kick him. I said, "Yeah, roll over, stop it." So the whole time I was on watch maybe 2, 3 times. I had a kick him. I said, "You can't snore like that." So then my watch was up and I woke him up for watch. He goes to, he had to sit by the radio also because they're calling on the radio at night. You didn't talk on the radio, you just squeezed the handset for a situation report. So they call and say, "Sit rep," and you just squeeze it twice to let them know you're okay. So then that kid got done with his watch and he was going to wake up the corpsman or somebody else for a watch, and he fell. His rifle hit the corpsman in the head. The corpsman rolls over on the squad leader. The squad leader thought he was getting attacked. He starts beating the corpsman up.
Oh, great.
And yeah, the corpsman got beat up, and
Oh,
we couldn't medevac him from the jungle that night. So the next day he got medevaced out. Now you can't sleep all night because you figure that everybody heard you. I mean, this place was nuts. It was bad. We knew there was enemy activity there, and it was just crazy.
did you ever get into situations where you needed to call in fire support?
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't but we called in like Artie and helicopters. It was like the first time I can remember seeing a Cobra helicopter, a two-man, gunship. So yeah, it was a couple times. Yeah.
Under what circumstance would you call in the fire support?
Well, you would call like if you were taking fire, you could call in for mortars or artillery, and same with the one time we're chasing these guys over these hills, and all of a sudden we're going over the hill. We thought we were behind them. Next thing you know, they're firing at us, and the bullets are hitting the ground like the movies. And you're going, holy cow! So then we saw where they were. We call in the helicopter or whatever was available. They would send,
Yeah.
and we would carry 60 millimeter mortars with the company, so you could always call for them. Tell them where you are. They would figure out where to shoot and tell them where the enemy is. But yeah, it was different. Yeah, it was a rush.
You said that when you signed up with the Marines, Vietnam was in your mind, but you weren't really thinking about it. You didn't really have any political thoughts or anything. Um, Suppose, a few months into your tour, you guys are out in the bush, things are quiet, and the Marine next to you, maybe you guys are reading MREs or something, and the Marine next to you just says, "Man, what are we doing here? What is this all about?" What do you think you would have said in response at that time?
I don't know. I was probably asking it too. What are we doing here? I really, in October, the guy that I enlisted with together in New Britain, Connecticut, he got killed. He was in a cap unit. He got killed October 12th. And then I found out he got killed. So then I started, what are they doing? What the heck's going on? What was it all about? So
What was his name?
his name was Richie Stollerin.
He was with Civic Action.
Yeah. Yeah. He was outside of Chu Lai. He got killed October 12th. And I didn't find out about it for a while. So it's probably the end of October by the time I got a letter from home. And, we used to sleep over each other's house and stuff like that.
Do you know what happened to him?
Yeah, they got overran. They had like 10 Marines and a corpsman go into a village and set up security, help them defend themselves and stuff like that. And they got overran, and he was one. I think they had 2 or 3 KIAs, and he was one of them.
Wow.
Years later, when after the computers, I looked up and on the computer and sent a letter out, and this guy wrote me back. He was from Alaska, and he said that Richie took his place in the bunker that night because he got malaria and had to go to the hospital. And then when he woke up in the morning in the hospital, his whole squad was in there, either dead or wounded. So he always felt guilty about that.
When you think about the first part of your tour, the first half of your tour, then you're out on patrols, you're out in the boonies all the time, you're setting up the ambushes, you're experiencing the firefights. Um, what is there a particular memory that is especially strong? You know, is there a particular memory that comes back more than any others from those 6 months?
Well, I think the rain. I really the rain was bad. October, the rain was horrible and wet and miserable. It was really bad. Everybody was getting immersion foot, and actually, the friends, you've just really met a lot of these guys, and you became so tight with them. That was, to me, you know, pretty heavy. And then you never saw them again after you left. you
Mm.
know, they have computers for 30 years.
Well, I want to ask you about that. So, you know, you're referring to this very strong bond that Marines create, soldiers, you know, experience the same thing in the field. You go through combat together, you got to trust each other. That very strong bond. Was it also true at the same time that if that Marine that you felt a very strong bond with, if that Marine got hit, that you had to let him go and just keep moving?
Yeah, and one of the things like that, well, I couldn't understand was like if somebody got hit, they would get medevac and stuff, and that was it. You don't if they didn't come back, we didn't know if they died or nobody. I don't understand. Did
Wow.
he get killed or he must have went home to the world anyway? One way or the other, he went back to the world. They didn't really tell us. Like one day, four or five guys got shot, and that was it. They were gone. What happened? Did they die? Any of them? I don't know. I mean, we were stayed, like I said, it was just our company, and usually they would send a third platoon out alone, just a platoon, and they kept two platoons with the skipper or the captain of the company, and one platoon would go out and roam around, I guess. But it always seemed like it was the third platoon that would go out. We'd just go out by ourselves.
When you got the news that you're going to switch duty and you're going to be military police now back in Da Nang, were you, how did you, what were your thoughts about that? Were you relieved to be getting out of the field?
Well, it was kind of a surprise, actually. I got medevaced in December. I had dysentery. I came down with dysentery. I got medevaced and sent to the NSA hospital outside Da Nang, I guess. And so I was in there for almost 2 weeks. And then when I got back to my company at this time, they were at LZ Baldy, the company office, and I had a week of light duty. So I'd go in the company office to see what they wanted me. By this time I was a corporal, and I found out I was a corporal in the hospital. I didn't even know I made corporal.
Wow.
So now, they'd make me like I didn't have to stand bunkers at night, but I'd go out in the day and watch the bunkers and the line, or else whatever they wanted me to do. So that was on the company office. They had a bulletin board, and I'd read it and stuff, and I saw, looking for MPs. And my father was a cop, So I said, I'll put in for that. I never expected to get it. Then I went back out in the bush and I put in for R&R too. So this is like 6 months, 5, 6 months. I figured I'd get R&R from the rock crusher area. They called me up to report it. I thought it was for R&R. And when I left, I went there and figured I'm coming back to the company in a week after R&R, but I got transferred. And that was it. I would never even say goodbye to the guys in my platoon, my squad.
You said in Da Nang, then you worked with South Vietnamese police?
Yep, the national police and the Vietnamese MPs.
Yeah.
We had a little, it was called a combined patrol. That it was not all of them. I mean, a lot of MPs, Stan Gates, but our little police station was right outside the air base in Da Nang, right outside. It was part of Dog Patch, which was kind of well known,
Mhm.
for skivvy runs and drugs and things like that. So,
Skivvy runs?
prostitution and stuff.
Yeah, I've never heard that. I haven't heard that phrase before, skivvy runs. Yeah,
Yeah.
the dog patch has a reputation. So I mean, was part of your job then to go into the dog patch and get the drunks out of there and that kind of?
Yeah. Yeah. And well, it was, you were like a cop. You had to do traffic like at rush hour when the bases, a lot of civilians worked on the air base and they would come out. And then everything was off limits in Dog Patch except for the intersection where you could get a ride if you were looking for a ride to go to somewhere.
Yeah,
And but that's where all the they come out and proposition you there.
right.
It's, there
So
was
the,
always,
so the dog patch was off limits, but a lot of guys went there anyway,
oh yeah, yeah,
just because of the businesses that were running there.
correct.
Yeah. What was your impression of the South Vietnamese police? Did they seem like you could trust them?
Yeah, there was good guys. It was fun. You get a whole different perspective of it. They had a job to do, and they didn't take any crap, really. Neither did the MPs. I mean, they were little guys basically, but they took care of themselves, and they, they had, watch them interact with the natives and stuff too. Was, you know, I don't know what, I never saw any graft or anything like that while I was there, but I'm sure it happened. There was a motor vehicle accident. It was right around, it's getting dark. So you want to keep the traffic moving and stuff like that. And I was on patrol. I might have been a sergeant now, but I was on patrol with the Vietnamese MP, the QC, and we come upon a traffic accident where, a big Marine Corps truck hit a motorcycle, little moped or something. So it was a civilian on the motorcycle, so we needed a national cop. So I called my buddy, this kid Jones. I said, Jonesy, come over here with your Jeep and your guys and keep the traffic flowing. And I'm going to go back to the police station and get a national cop, accused consop. He says, okay. So I told him, Jones, keep the traffic flowing. So I go back. There was no policeman at the station available, so I'm coming back to help him out. I get there, the traffic is all backed up, and I'm going, Jesus. I thought I told him to keep it going. Now I see coming down, the guy said somebody's up there threw a hand grenade.
Oh,
I said, oh, great. Now I start going up the side of the shoulder of the road with my Jeep, and here comes Jones being carried by two guys down the freaking shoulder of the road. I said, what? He said, they threw a grenade into the MP Jeep. I said, "Oh my god."
Wow.
I said, "Get in the Jeep." He's bleeding from the mouth, he's limping. So then I go back up there. I mean, there's people laying around, they're throwing the civilians into the Vietnamese army trucks to take to the hospital or whatever. So I pick up the his QC Vietnamese MP, put him in my Jeep. I call up the radio. I says, "Open up the gates to division headquarters." I said, "Tell them I'm coming through and I'm not stopping. I'm going to take these guys to the hospital." So I took them to the hospital. I stayed with Jones and watched him get the shrapnel taken out of him.
How much time did you have left in the Marine Corps when your year in Vietnam was up?
No, I got out as soon as I got back to the U.S. And we went to I landed at Norton Air Force Base, and then they drove us by buses down to San Diego, the recruit depot, like Parris Island on the West Coast. And I got separated out there a week later after I stayed in San Diego maybe a week and I got out.
So you're telling me what I've heard a number of times. You're in Vietnam, you're experiencing these things in Vietnam, you fly back to the States. In your case, you arrive at Norton in Southern California, then you make your way to San Diego, and within a week, you're a civilian.
Yeah,
And
pretty much.
that just strikes me as insane that and I've heard this story so many times. You're taking guys from a war zone, guys who have experienced combat, guys who've experienced what you just described, and you're just dropping them again into civilian life and expecting everything to go okay. It
Yeah,
it just seems insane that that happened.
it was. And then at that time, it was like nothing, no reception really. I feel my folks put a little sign, "Welcome home, Chuck," and I said, "Oh," but I mean, it was crazy. I mean, it was. I grew up. I had a lot of friends, and I still do. And I was fortunate. I had a good family. I could, and my friends, even though they were all in college and part of a lot of, they didn't treat me any different. And so I was fortunate. I think I could understand how a lot of guys, but I know I have PTSD. I just didn't know about it at the time. So,
Yeah. Well,
but it,
so you didn't experience any of the protesting directed at you or anything like that?
well, we did. Like when we were coming down from Norton Air Force Base to the Marines at San Diego. I mean, we're looking at the young girls. We haven't seen any blonde, blue eyes, or it's all Orientals, which is fine. But we're checking out the young chicks and stuff, and they're looking out. We're all on one side of the bus, and they're passing us by, giving us the finger and everything
Oh,
like that. It was. Then you get on the airplane. After you get out, you had to wear your uniform to go like travel across country or get the discount, whatever it was, because you're flying standby. So yeah, and the people say, at the airports,
really?
airplane. Yeah, it was
What
different, but
what what kinds of things do people say to you in the airport?
well, there was like, I didn't get spit on or anything like that, but it was like, you would hear baby killers and things like that. I could brush things off and stuff like that. Then I went on the airplane. I was flying. I figured I'd stop. My sister lived in southern Indiana.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd stop and see her on the way home. I stopped in Louisville for a couple of days and happened to be sitting in there with a bunch of kids from like the 4-H club or something like that. And a whole bunch of them were around me. And then they started asking me questions, and I'm there, did you do this? Did you, they were like junior high, high school kids. I wasn't much away from him, but I felt like I was a whole different person, you know? "Did
Mm,
you kill anybody? Did you do this?" I said, you don't wanna hear it." I can't tell you wouldn't understand anyway,
yeah.
but
Well, so veterans, they say, not sometimes actually, I hear it frequently. Um, there was the hostility, the protesters, but in a way, what was maybe even harder was the apathy. You know,
yeah.
the feeling that no one cared, no one wanted to know what you experienced, no one really wanted to listen to what you had to say. Does that fit with your experience?
That was pretty true for sure. Even, like, I joined the VFW and stuff like that, and those guys, a lot of them, you know, it was like they would have a bumper sticker on the front of the cash register. It said the footprint of the American chicken with the peace sign there. And, I go, geez, we used to wear that on our helmets,
Mhm.
we wanted peace too. I figured anyone who was in combat, was pro peace,
Yeah.
openly. Anyway. But yeah, no, they were tough. It wasn't a real war. What?
Well, because I've heard this sometimes, Vietnam guys saying that the World War II guys kind of treated the Vietnam guys like, their war wasn't a real war, like the Second World War had been. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
Yeah, yeah. There was that a lot of that.
So you said a minute ago that you know, you have PTSD as a result of the time in Vietnam, which is not surprising. Um, so how did that, what happened or what series of things happened, I'm imagining over years where you finally realized, something's going on.
Well, I think it was probably, like the self-medicating and stuff with the alcohol and, you know, you just kill the pain, Then one day I went to the doctors at the VA. I said, she goes, "Well, why do you drink?" I didn't drink a lot, but I would go out on binge drink, I guess they called it.
Mm,
So then I said, "Well, so if I drink, I don't have dreams." She goes, "What do you mean?" I says, "Oh, I get some weird dreams, I don't, you know, go back into where I was." So she would go see this guy. So I started going, Then they labeled me PTSD.
is part of your experience a recurring dream?
One was one was recurring.
Are you
It
willing to
was
share what that was?
well, it was like kind of strange. It was when I was in Vietnam, really the only Quonset huts I saw were in the hospital at the Navy NSA hospital. And so we're in the Quonset hut with all these beds, and the base is getting attacked. So all of a sudden we heard that they're inside the wire. So I'm standing right next to the door of the Quonset hut with the rifle. I'm ready to go. And all of a sudden the door kicks open and little Vietnamese comes in the door with a satchel charge of explosives. I pick it up. I said, "I got this bastard." I put the gun to his head. I'm going to kill him. And I pull the trigger and it just goes click, doesn't go off. And the Vietnamese was looking at it. He's ready to die. Then a big smile comes on his face and he starts picking up his bag to hit me. And I'm picking up my rifle and butt stock him in the head. And I wake up. That's about it. So,
Wow. How much of a presence, since you got home in 70, right?
yeah.
You got home in 70. How much of a presence has Vietnam been in your life since you came home? Is it one of those things where in one way or another, it at, at the very least goes through your mind at least once a day?
I would say, yeah, for sure. It was a big part of my life in my jobs and stuff like that. I got addicted to adrenaline. I know it.
So you've indicated, what you often hear from combat vets, and that it takes a toll on you, and it's a toll that for most vets, lasts a lifetime. You come home from the war, and but you never really, the war never really leaves you. Um, at the same time, combat vets often say that although Vietnam was hell, there's something about that experience that they missed in later years. Is that true for you?
Yeah, actually, I went back in '08.
Mm.
I went back to Vietnam with a couple of friends, and it was like getting to be, was it real? What I was starting to think was that experience, was did that really happen to me? And my friend, he married a Thai girl, and he goes back and forth there a lot. And he went to Vietnam, and he was at LZ Ross and LZ Baldy before, so he said he's going again. So I went with him, and it was real. Places, they LZ Ross, they made into a monument for the North Vietnamese. I mean, but it's still, they had these three big boulders on top of the little hill that the CP was on. And I mean, they were weird. They were like monoliths almost. And they had like spray painted KC and LA, with their towns, black paper. And they had still, I said, that was the one thing I remembered. As soon as I saw them, I said, it was real. And then we were out there, and I could places where shit happened. I said, I did. It was real. My son wound up in Afghanistan in the Marine Corps. You know, that was probably the worst thing I ever went through. I would have. That's when I started dreaming again too, and then I would have, that I'd see a Marine walking up my sidewalk. I don't know what I would have done. That really freaked me out.